resolving environmental disputes through grassroots mediations. That is our topic for today. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by mediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact-dependent. Hi, everyone. This is Mac Pierre-Louis, attorney, mediator, and arbitrator working throughout Florida and Texas, and I'm the co-founder of mediations.com.
Hello, and I'm Thomas Giglione, mediator and arbitrator, originally from Toronto, Canada, now in Hanoi, Vietnam. And I'd like to introduce Hoa from MACDI organization, also in Hanoi, Vietnam.
Hi, I'm Hoa from MACDI. MACDI is an organization working on microfinance and other community development projects. And I'm talking to you all today from Hanoi, Vietnam.
All right. Thank you so much, Hoa. And it's good to have everyone on board today. So got a special topic for today, and that's on grassroots mediation and the work that's being done in Vietnam. And as usual, Thomas, who brought this subject to us, has brought a great guest. And Hoa from MACDI is here to also talk about her organization and what they're doing in terms of grassroots mediations. So just wanted to start off with a quick definition of what grassroots mediation is, to kind of lay the land for the people who are maybe not in Vietnam, or who are in Vietnam, but they don't really know too much about it. So back in 2013, Vietnamese government passed a law called the Law on Grassroots Mediation. And that allowed for locals, for people at the grassroots level to get together and resolve conflicts. And that has lots of goals, right? Obviously, you can keep the peace, you can maintain order, and you can have just a quicker court system because you're not clogging the courts up with disputes. You can just resolve them at the local level. So at the definition level, grassroots mediation is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism for minor disputes, conflicts, and violations of the law arising in the daily lives of communities. This is a voluntary procedure. Grassroots mediation is widely used because of low costs, accessibility, confidentiality, and its ability to reduce tensions between parties. And so I wanted to just start off with the definition to explain what grassroots mediations is, because that's something that people around me in the US anyway might not be too familiar with. Mm-hmm. But wanted to open up the floor to you, Thomas, to go a little bit more into grassroots mediation and how it connects with what the United Nations was trying to do.
Yes, thanks, Mac. The grassroots mediation has been an initiative mostly in the developing countries, promoted by United Nations and United Nations development programs. So that's probably why it's not so known in the West, because the West is developed. But basically, the United Nations came up several years ago with SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and there are a total of 17 of them. And MACDI has been focused on several of the SDGs, and now recently we're focusing on SDG 16, which is focused on peace and justice. That's my expertise. And we're looking at promoting mediation, grassroots mediation, collaborating with MACDI in that regard. You could see there, I magnified number 16. That's not in the original, they're all equal, but I magnified it to show you that that is our focus. And the member states, the United Nations, adapted these Sustainable Development Goals by the General Assembly resolution. The aim of the resolution is to achieve these 17 goals by 2030 with the view towards ending all forms of poverty, fighting inequalities, and tackling climate change while ensuring that no one is left behind. So these are really worthwhile, worthy goals. And I'm working with MACDI here in Vietnam to focus on number 4, the training mediators in grassroots mediation, and also working towards SDG 16, which is peace and justice. So number 4 is SDG for quality education. So we're trying to integrate quality mediation education here in Vietnam. I'm also in the pro bono community, the legal community here in Vietnam. I was a guest lecturer at Hanoi Law University. I was involved with pro bono work when I was a lecturer at York University in Toronto. And we're hoping to get funding next year to do more training. And I'm inviting law students and mediators from around the world. I know that there are a lot of opportunities where young lawyers could get practice in mediation. Sorry, I meant to say there are not a lot of opportunities where young lawyers could get practice in practical experience in conflict resolution. So keep in touch with us because we're hoping to get some funding to allow some young lawyers to come to Vietnam from developed countries and help us on these missions to train mediators on conflict resolution. We're hoping to have like a study tour when the COVID situation dies down, hopefully when everybody's vaccinated, probably in a year's time.
Thank you. And I'll touch base with Hoa on that. But before I do, wanted to go back to the grassroots mediation work that's happening in Vietnam. Can you tell us, Thomas, some of the pros and the cons? Like, what are the negatives, in addition to the positives that you've explained, what are the negatives that you've seen in grassroots mediation?
Yes. Actually, there was a report that I believe you mentioned where there was a study done by UNDP, financed by the United Nations Development Program, UNICEF, and Jule's organization here in Vietnam. And the report was just published just last year. And there were some positive things. There were surveys conducted of the participants. Most of the participants above average had favorable impressions. However, there was more positive feedback whenever the mediator was specifically trained in mediation, and it was only about 19 or 20% of the mediators that were specifically trained as mediators. The others might have been in various social skills and in those areas, but basically the survey, 80% reported greater satisfaction when the mediators had specific training. The other problem areas is only about 30% of the mediators were women, and whereas most of the people involved in disputes were women. So there was a small minority of small percentage of women that were involved in as mediators in these projects.
Thank you. So yeah, we're going to come back to that report because it does shed a lot of light and gives a lot of really good data on what's happening on the ground. But first, let's flip over to Hoa and let's talk about the work she's doing through MACDI. And I should be pronouncing this correctly, right? Because it has my name in it.
Yes.
But I'm gonna blow up the monitor here for folks who might be watching on YouTube. And of course, if you don't watch this live and you're listening to it later on a podcast, I will put some of the links down on the blog post version as well as on the YouTube channel. So I have MACDI's mission. And that is to become one Vietnamese leading organization in implementing programs and projects supporting socioeconomic development, climate change mitigation, supporting impoverished community, especially disabled people, women, children, elders, and ethnic minority groups. MACDI also aims to improve health, income, living conditions, and enable community members to participate and enhance their political voice, protect the environment, and natural resources. So, Hoa, that's a lot that you guys do. So tell
Yes.
us briefly about your organization and some of the other things that you do. And I have up on your screen on some of the other things that are listed on your website. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for the give me a chance today to talk about MACDI. As you know, MACDI stands for the Microfinance and Community Development Institute. As we mentioned in our mission and also the vision, we are trying, in just a briefly summary, we are trying to give a much better chance for the community development in terms of the economic empowerment for women and give a better livelihood for the vulnerable communities. And we try to bring the more chance for the better living condition and better life, better environment for our rural people and those marginalized community in the rural and mountainous area. That is our activities we have been doing so far. And
Okay.
we have been, yeah.
No, please continue.
And you can see that we have been involved with in a lot of things to align our activity with the Sustainable Development Goals by the UN, as mentioned in total is 17 SDG. And we have been doing on the quality education and also the water sanitation for the people. And now we're also trying to integrate our activities with the SDG 16 on peace, justice, and strong institution, especially for those at the grassroots level. As you can see that we often work with a lot of provincial and rural community, like the family of ethnic minority people, and we also provide the livelihood solution for them to improve their income and also to give a better lives for them. And during such activities, we also met with quite a lot of cases of a small dispute among them, from this family to another one on some like a land dispute, or even the small issue in the house, like when they lost some chicken, they also make noise with the neighbor.
Let
And
me ask
also
you.
when
Let me
yes,
ask you. Let me ask you about that, because you're giving some examples of disputes that happen just person to person locally. So, out of all of the different projects that you've been doing, is
yes.
the grassroots mediation the latest one that you guys are trying to tackle?
Yes, I can give you some very realistic example.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's say,
Give me some examples of other ways a mediator that's working with you might be helping people with common problems.
yes, that is the most recent case here. I'm talking about is the environmental issue in the residential area in one of the province that I visited. At that province, there's quite a number of farmers. They raise a big farm of the cow or pig or some other kind of animals, and they are blamed by all the neighboring families that they discharge so much solid waste and also the wastewater into the river or into the pool next to the neighborhood area. And that one also makes the environment is terrible, and the living condition is much worse. And of course also causing hand issues for the such a residential area. And of course, the residential area, the residential families around there, they try to bring the case to the head of the commune. And of course, sometimes it's also very difficult for both sides, the farm owner and the families coming to the final solution with each other. And they need some people to come in as a mediator for them. And
so just to make sure I understand, the example you just gave of where a farm, for example, has cows that's polluting the local stream or pond, then the people who are being negatively affected, they then have a place to go to so they can resolve the problem. And you mentioned the local commune. So in Vietnam, that's how it's set up so that the people can come. And now would you be the mediator, or would somebody through MACDI be the mediator? Is that how the situation occurs?
In that case, because of course normally by right, the family there, they will bring the case to the local commune, like the head of the commune. But of course, you see that the head commune, sometimes they are also very difficult for them. They don't have any skill to give a mediation to such a family. So they just leave the case like that. They don't give any solution. And of course, as MACDI, some of our staff, they often work closely with such a family. So sometimes we also give the family some kind of advice, or can be also like some kind of mediation, because if we know that the farm owner, they have discharged so much waste, we may come to see him and say that please find some way. Maybe we also try to recommend him some kind of things to how to treat that solid waste first, and to reduce the solution, the pollution to the environment. And also on the other side, I also try to talk to the residential family that they, at least the other side, they show some signal that they try to settle the things. So please give them some time. So try not to make so much noise, or just try not to quarrel to each other, because it makes no sense. And of course, the farm owner, they can't give a solution right away. And during maybe after 6 months or about or some time like that. So two sides, they try to settle with each other, and at least they can less tension. They have a less tension, and they just can live in a peaceful things with each other.
Yeah.
They're not as tension as before.
I understand. Well, that's a lot of good work that you're doing over there, because any mechanism that you can set up, okay, as a local organization that will help people to come together and try to resolve their disputes is always a good thing. Let me bring in Thomas. So Thomas, based on what Hoa has explained about the kind of work that they do, how has your work as a trainer and a mediator coincided or intersected with what they're doing?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, the government program that they have just only requires Vietnamese mediators, and there were and also they didn't provide translators, and they provide nominal payment for that. And also their mechanism is such that if you resolve the dispute, you get paid. If you don't resolve the dispute, you don't get paid. So there's a lot of problems with that mechanism. Just to give everybody a little bit of background for some of your viewers, I want to give a little bit of Wikipedia background about Vietnam when you're trying to visualize what is, the country Vietnam. If you could visualize Florida, well, imagine double the length of Florida with 5 times the population. Okay, so that's Vietnam. So it's double the length of Florida with double the population, 98 million people. I'm in Hanoi. Hanoi has 5 times the population of Houston, where you are right now, Mac. So they've done, they reported they've done several thousand, almost 100,000 mediations. That report might be a little skewed, but we have, I believe, there are 68 provinces in Vietnam. How many provinces
63,
are there?
63.
Yeah, 63 provinces. I've been living here in Vietnam for almost 11 years. I've only visited 20 of the provinces here in Vietnam. So it's a lot of area, a lot of people, it's a lot of work to be done here. And we're looking at improving the training for mediators, not just environmental issues, but in other areas. But MACDI is specifically the grassroots mediation in environmental. But I do various sectors. I recently have been more focused on environmental mediation because that's a growing issue, I think, worldwide.
Gotcha. And let's talk a little bit about that report that they had done. I know that the data that I was looking at, and by the way, this is a report by EU Jule, and which, for those who don't know, is the EU Justice Legal Empowerment Program. And that's a UN created organization in connection with the EU that's working in Vietnam to try to promote strong rule of law, reliable and trusted and better accessed justice system. And this is central to SDG number 16, the Peace, Justice, and Strong Institutions goal by the UN. So what they're saying, what the report's saying is, in Vietnam, grassroots mediation is currently regulated by the state, but by the end of 2018, 107,000 mediation teams had been established, with 652,000 mediators in total. Between 2014 and 2018, 760,000 cases were subject to grassroots mediations. So a lot of work has been done, but they also, like Thomas suggested a second ago, they also have some cause for concern. They have some reasons to believe that things might not be going so well. And a lot of that was because of the training or the knowledge that the mediators actually had. If you were someone who looks like a mediator, they would just give you a case when you might not actually have the credentials or the credibility. And that actually showed in the survey when people, the participants of the mediation, were asked, hey, what do you think about your mediator? Not everybody was as confident in a mediator, especially if the mediator didn't speak the same language as, or had a language barrier from them. Thomas, can you talk a little bit more about that, and then some of the work that you're doing to resolve the mediation issues in Vietnam, and what MACDI can also be doing as well?
Yeah, in that report, only 20% had mediation training, specific mediation training. Something like 50% just read a guidebook that they had to follow, like an instruction book, had no previous. And in that report, the greatest positive feedback was with that 20% that had that training. So the key is training. I do a lot of pro bono work. I haven't done anything because of the lockdown over the past year, but the pro bono community is something that is also, I hope to develop a little bit more here in Vietnam. Pro bono meaning free legal work, free mediation work. That goes hand in hand with mentorships with the law students, and also working with grassroots. Grassroots is an ideal environment for young lawyers to get experience in these areas of conflict resolution, and to get their hours. And lawyers coming from other countries, to get their hours in pro bono initiatives. So I'm working with MACDI and trying to guide them in how we could do some training post-COVID. Probably not anything this year, but we're Hoa and Thai. Thai is the chairwoman, are working on getting funding from USAID and looking at that. And so I'm also looking at there's some peace and development issues that are being promoted here in Vietnam. Kamala Harris is coming actually next week here. The defense secretary was here. Vietnam is very USA is very focused on Vietnam and helping development. So I assume there's going to be a lot more exchange and work for peace and development in the coming years. So yes, I'm working with the American Chamber of Commerce also to see if we can get some funding with USAID in that area to allow for maybe trainers or law students to come from the US to help us with these grassroots initiatives.
Thank you. And Hoa, could you speak to that as well? Are you guys interested in getting that help, and what is MACDI doing with regards to that?
Yes, thank you, Mac, and thank you, Thomas. I think Thomas gave very good ideas about the training initiative on the grassroots mediation. As you know that at the grassroots level, we have quite a number of local staff who are working with the rural family, rural people, or ethnic minority people. So it's quite important that if they can be equipped or they can be trained with some kind of the mediation skill, because every day they work with different families. So of course they will hear a lot of story about their dispute or their conflict with the next door neighbor, or to any companies next to their house on the any environmental issues. And especially during the next few years, we will be focusing more on the environmental project and any renewable energy project. And we most of the time we always work with the household people in rural area. So I think that kind of training, that Thomas initiative is quite interesting for our staff. And we also suggest that maybe we can engage some of the law students in Vietnam, in the law university in Vietnam, or in some other justice agency, so they can join to also be trained, and also they can come to the different provinces and provide their mediation skill. That is very great for our community development. And of course, we also developing some kind of the program or project to seek for the fundings from different international organizations to promote for such training, and also to dispute, to resolve the grassroots level dispute through the mediation for our staff as well as other law students to get involved. Yeah.
Thank you.
One area,
And, Thomas,
one area that I want to mention is 8 years ago I did some training for the Public Security Academy. That's like a police academy for the police. So I'm going to approach once we get funding, the local police communities, which are the first people that are called in these kinds of disputes, because they have absolutely no training in this area, in grassroots mediation or even police mediation for other disputes. But I've been out of touch with them for about 8 years. But once we get funding, I can't do very much until we get some funding, but I will be approaching the Public Security Academy, which is the training institution for the police in Vietnam.
Yes. And maybe I should ask one more comments on this part. You know that now in each province in Vietnam, they have set up the kind of center like a legal advisory center that is a public, like some kind of public lawyers agent. They every month, so they will conduct 2 or 3 days coming to each commune at the time, and to provide some kind of mediation skill, or some kind of the on some different subject like a land dispute or environmental issue. And I think it's so good that if Thomas can involve such a legal advisory service at the grassroots level, so at least they can be quite close with each family in the rural area, and they can provide the immediate mediation skill for them.
Sure, that'd be wonderful. Please invite me. I'd be happy to come. Just buy me lunch.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, I can be more than happy to do so with you.
Okay. All right.
Well, guys, thank you so much for the conversation. We're up about 30 minutes now. And all the work that you're doing, promoting peace, justice, and just good governance and transparency, all of that in a country like Vietnam is good to hear. And Thomas, again, thank you again for connecting as a mediations with MACDI and the work you guys are doing in Hoa. You are the chairperson of MACDI, and appreciate the work that you're doing over there on the ground. And thank you so much for your time and your contribution to this topic.
Thank you. Thank you, Mac.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mark, for this interview session.
All right, guys, we're closing out. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.